Welcome to Seavine News Network. I'm Linda Forsyth, and I have a number of things to go over with you today. A lot of breaking news, and of course, many of us are, to say we are a little bit distressed about some of the things that have been transpiring for the last couple of days. Well, I'm going to be discussing that with you. First, before we get into that, I do want to let you know that our team that has been in Washington, D.C. in order to do some reporting. They have some incredible footage. They were pretty much on the front lines and seeing a lot of the things happen, got a lot of footage. We have been having a horrible time getting any kind of signal to be able to transfer all the footage that they have. It's been almost impossible. They even stayed another couple of days to see if they could do the editing there and get things out. But something's going on because we usually don't have this much trouble in getting things going. But they decided that, you know what, they're just going to come home, back into town, so to speak. And as soon as they went to another airport en route, they were able to upload everything over to us. So we're in the process right now of getting that edited. And so I am hoping by this evening, we'll be able to get that out to you. It's, from what I'm understanding, it's pretty awesome. But that being said, things that have been happening the last couple of days, many of us are just very distraught and concerned. And before I get into the news, just let me say one thing. There is only so much that you can control. Being worried and afraid and scared is the last thing that you should do, even though it's almost impossible not to. But having fear is the opposite of faith. And you need to bring yourself to a place of peace in whatever manner it is that it works for you, whether it's listening to music or reading, uplifting things, something to get your mind off of it, to bring yourself to a place of peace, because it's from there that you will be guided and you feel much better and you'll be able to think clearer also. So just know there's only so much that you can control. And I do genuinely believe that POTUS has this. You think this is over? No, I don't believe that for a second. And that's part of what we're going to be discussing today. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to get into a couple of news stories here. And before I get started, letting YouTube know this is opinion and analysis. I'm going to be showing a couple of things that we're aware of, and then I'm going to be discussing my opinion. Okay? All right, so sharing the screen. All right, this is our c-fine.com website, c-fine.com website. We do not know what's going to be happening, within the next, couple of weeks. So if for some reason, social media or whichever goes down, please know we've got c-fine.com right here. We're uploading news stories every single day. Our volunteers are just really, really moving quickly now in order to be able to get this stuff to you. We also still have the forum. The forum was built in case everything went down. So we're prepared. You can see the forum right here. So if for some reason social media goes down, then go to the forum, discuss, or in the very, very least, at the bottom of every single article, you can make some comments and use that as a forum in discussion going back and forth. Also, just a quick heads up, we are not a business. We are a foundation, a charitable trust that was created for we the people. This is your news website. The people that are going out and bringing you the news in all different types of formats, etc., are all volunteers from everywhere. So just know that these are people that are just donating their time, just like our team that went to Washington, D.C. I want to thank everybody for donating and trying to help to defray the cost. There is a donation page here at the top, and there's one-time donations if you want to do just one-time donations. And also, if you want to become a member of the site, you still have full access, even if you are not a member. But the reason the membership is here is to help us out with monthly donations, $5, $10, whichever works best for you. So, it's up to you what you would like to do. Okay, now let's go ahead. You can see that there's all sorts of news stories that are coming out here. I'm going to go to the first one, and this one was rather interesting. You see what I mean in just a minute. Lindsey Graham is swarmed in the airport by people screaming he's a traitor. And this was put up by Dinesh D'Souza. And so I'm just going to read it first before I play it for you. Apparently, Lindsey missed his flight. Apparently. Was there a prediction from a particular alphabet letter somewhere in the past who said that there will be some that won't be able to walk down the street without guards? Why would something like that happen? We're watching that prediction come true for the most part as of today. When America was formed, it was created to be run by we, the people. And the US Constitution was put into place with safeguards to protect us from tyranny, takeover, or even a coup. Checks and balances were in place to keep our branches of the government honest. Elections are run for we, the people, to choose who will represent our voice. The elected work for us. What happens when those who are elected decide to ignore our voice and take power for themselves, or even an outside entity, which is becoming more and more apparent that might be the case, even up to the highest office? Has our country been infiltrated from within by those who wish us harm? You will know them by their fruits. Mainstream media may be able to legally push propaganda put into place by Obama. I thought that that was supposed to be for, foreign entities that, enemies, etc. But it's not supposed to be used on us. But apparently it is. Well, not apparently, it is. Social media and big tech may censor our speech, but we, the people, can now see with clarity. There's not much they're going to be able to get by us much longer. We know the truth. The silent majority is no longer silent. We, the people, are united and will no longer allow tyranny to continue. Traitors will be loudly called out, as shown on the attached video posted by Dinesh D'Souza in Rumble. So I'm going to play that for you. It's very short, but it's interesting.
You traitor! You traitor! You traitor! You're a traitor! Lindsey Graham, you are a traitor to the country! You know it was rigged! You know it was rigged! You know it was rigged! You garbage human being! It's gonna be like this forever, wherever you go for the rest of your life! Audit the vote! Audit the vote! Audit the vote! Audit the vote!
Audit the vote.
Piece of shit! Audit our vote! 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 Hey, you better sell your soul out! You son of...
Okay, I'm going to cut off the language so we don't get knocked by YouTube, but it goes on from there. This article is posted on our website if you want to see the whole thing. Going on to the next report. What might the transition of power look like? Many of us heard President Trump's announcement that he made that those of you that have listened to it, if you didn't listen very carefully, you may have assumed a couple of things. And so I'm not going to say much more than that. I'm just going to read this opinion piece to you, and you make the decision. This was actually written by Natural News. It was very well done, and it was put out today. Trump did not concede, and the transition of power doesn't necessarily mean a transition to Biden. Report by Natural News. Under the cover of night, the treasonous U.S. Congress voted to install CCP puppet Joe Biden into the White House, confirming his fraudulent slate of electors as accepted. A few hours later, Trump issued a statement about a transition of power. Here it is. Listen carefully. Even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. I have always said we would continue our fight to ensure that only legal votes were counted. While this represents the end of the greatest first term in presidential history, it's only the beginning of our fight to make America great again. This statement is being widely interpreted by the media to be a concession statement from the president. However, it is no such thing. Trump did not concede at all. He did not congratulate Joe Biden, and he did not say he would leave the White House. When he says the beginning of the greatest first term, that makes sense since Trump's second term would begin on January 20th. So his first term is ending. More importantly, Trump did not specify what the orderly transition means. He didn't say there would be a transition to Biden being installed as president. He might be referring to the transition of America away from the tyranny of the deep state and the return of power to the people. In fact, Trump's statement seems to be designed to disarm those calling for his immediate removal under the 25th Amendment so that Trump can continue to work the military solution that would seek mass arrests of the traitors who attempted to pull off their criminal coup against America. Many traitors will be arrested and jailed over the next several days, wrote attorney Lynn Wood in a Parler tweet he issued during the early morning hours after Congress completed its final act of betrayal of America. He also retweeted from another statement from Parler user Storm is Upon Us, who explained, "Sleep well tonight, patriots. The constitutional process played out till the end, and Trump didn't interfere once. You are going to love how this movie ends." Trump's proclamation to disperse is a necessary legal step before invoking the Insurrection Act. Yesterday, Trump released a video that contained a proclamation to disperse. This was the video in which he told everybody to go home in peace. This statement, it turns out, is a necessary step to invoke the militia or U.S. Armed Forces to defend the Republic. 10 U.S.C. Section 254 is called Proclamation to Disperse, and it explains, whenever the president considers it necessary to use militia or the armed forces under this chapter, he shall by proclamation immediately order the insurgents to disperse and retire peaceably to their abodes within a limited time. That is exactly what Trump did on the 6th. I have down yesterday. He then boarded Air Force One and flew to a military base in Texas where he could be safe from any kinetic coup attempt in the swamp of Washington, D.C. This was tweeted out by Code Monkey Z, citing MonkeyWorks. Now, Trump is likely preparing to invoke the Insurrection Act or some other form of military authority to conduct mass arrests of the traitors who have betrayed this nation, which now includes Vice President Mike Pence, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, and many others. Understand that Trump didn't know for sure who the traitors were until about 3:00 a.m. this morning, because that's when the final votes came down in Congress, affirming the complete list of U.S. senators and House members who are complicit in the criminal coup against the United States of America. Naturally, every single Democrat in Congress was confirmed as a traitor, but most members of the GOP also joined the traitor list. The Gateway Pundit published the full list of treasonous GOP members this morning, all of whom voted against the objections to the Biden slate of electors. I'm going to read these out to you. Everybody needs to take note and remember these. This report is up on the C-Fine website if you need it for reference. Amodei, Republican of Nevada. Armstrong, Republican, North Dakota. Bacon, Republican, Nebraska. Belderson, Republican, Ohio. Barr, Republican, Kentucky. Bentz, Republican, Oregon. Buchanan, Republican, Florida. Buck, Republican, Colorado. Buckshom, Republican, Indiana. Chabot, Republican, Ohio. Cheney, Republican, Wyoming. Corner, Republican, Kentucky. Crenshaw, Republican, Texas. Curtis, Republican, Utah. Davis, Rodney, Republican, Illinois. Emmer, Republican Minnesota. Feenstra, Republican Iowa. Ferguson, Republican Georgia. Fitzpatrick, Republican Pennsylvania. Fortenberry, Republican Nebraska. Fox, Fox was a Republican North Carolina. Gallagher, Republican Wisconsin. Garbarino, Republican New York. Gonzalez, Tony, Republican Texas. Gonzalez, Ohio, Republican Ohio. Graves, Louisiana, Republican. Grotham, Republican Wisconsin. Guthrie, Republican Kentucky. Herrera, Butler, Republican Washington. Hill, Republican Arkansas. Hinson, Republican Iowa. Hollingsworth, Republican Indiana. Zenga, I hope I didn't pronounce it. Republican Michigan. Johnson, Republican South Dakota. Joyce, Republican Ohio. Katko, Republican New York. Killer, Republican Pennsylvania. Kinzinger, Republican Illinois. Okay, this goes on and on and on and on and on. So I think you get the gist. Our Republicans, the ones that are supposed to be on our side, the ones you elected to represent your voice. This is what has happened here. Okay, on the Senate side, there are only 7 US senators who held the line and voted to object to the election fraud. These are the only 7 US senators who are not traitors. Senator Ted Cruz, Senator Josh Hawley, Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, Senator Cynthia Lummis, Senator Roger Marshall, Senator John Kennedy, Senator Tommy Tuberville. So these are the 7 that are not traitors in the Senate that stood up with us for we the people. Now, only now does Trump have the final arrest list of treasonous actors who betrayed America in our final hour. In fact, there's no way Trump could have known all this unless the scenario was allowed to run its course. Most Americans, for example, would never have believed that Vice President Mike Pence, an evangelical Christian, would have betrayed the nation in its most critical moment. Now, Lin Wood's statement about Mike Pence being linked to pedophilia, Jeffrey Epstein, and child trafficking operations suddenly makes sense to anyone who has been paying attention. Pence was controlled opposition from the very start, and Pence was the source of the leaks from the White House over the last 4 years. Globalists had Pence over a barrel from day one. Will Trump pull the trigger? The only question now is, will Trump pull the trigger and unleash the military arrests? Note, Trump does not have the loyalty of the US Army nor of many top generals. He doesn't need that. Trump has Chris Miller at the DOD, and he has the loyalty of Special Operations Forces Command, along with the Space Force, the Air Force, and most of the US Marines. That's all he needs. Trump must now activate a military option to defend the Republic, either via Insurrection Act or the military authority. He has put everything in place for this very moment. Importantly, Trump patiently attempted to defend the Republic through the courts and through Congress, watching as each option was exhausted due to extreme corruption, criminality, and fraud throughout the system. Even SCOTUS was compromised in the same way Pence has been compromised: blackmail, extortion, and pedophilia. Trump has decided early on that he would not act until every single civil option was exhausted. As of 3 a.m. this morning, that waypoint has now been reached. There are 2 options remaining for defending America now. Trump invokes the military authority option and initiates the mass arrest. Armed patriots rise up to defend the nation and declare independence from tyranny. As I've stated in my Situation Update podcast, we urge Trump to choose option 1 so that option 2 doesn't get spontaneously activated across the country, likely plunging the nation into a hot civil war. I believe option number 1 is exactly what's going to happen. Trump invokes the military authority option and initiates the mass arrest. The window of opportunity for Trump to invoke his military authority option is very narrow, perhaps as small as 72 hours from now. If we do not see action from Trump in the next 72 hours, only then could we conclude he is likely thrown in the towel. Until then, we must watch carefully and try to discern what's actually taking place behind the scenes to defend this nation. Trump has not conceded. America is not yet lost, although it is admittedly very, very close to that tipping point. But sometimes in history, the most dramatic outcomes of truth and light can only come after the most dire suffering through darkness. Today is America's darkest day, but it may not yet be followed by victory. It may yet be followed by victory. The GOP is finished. One final thought for this article. The GOP is finished. 80 plus million Trump supporters will no longer support any GOP candidate from this day forward. We learned last night the GOP will betray America when it counts. And from this day forward, we denounce the GOP and urge all readers and supporters to join us in that denouncement. Never send donations to the GOP again. Never vote for a GOP candidate ever again unless their name is Trump. Never believe anything a GOP weasel promises in any election speech or campaign ad. There are a few exceptions to the GOP treason, such as hero Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, Josh Hawley, and a few others. But last night showed us that when it really counts for the country, the GOP will betray us when it is politically convenient for them to do so. The GOP as a party is as dead as now as the DNC. The only question remaining is whether the United States of America is dead as well, and we won't know the answer for sure until we see what Trump does over the next several days. Again, this report is from Natural News, and we are putting it out as an opinion and up for analysis and discussion. At the bottom of this report on our CVine website, please go ahead and discuss it, or in the YouTube channel, discuss it there. If you are liking this video and or you like this channel, please hit the subscribe button and hit like. That very much helps us. Now, I have one last thing to bring out, and it's really very important. So you guys need to listen carefully. This just came through and is breaking. Apple threatening to ban Parler, and alarming movements happening with social media everywhere. Again, this is an opinion. This is an analysis. This is what we are basing it off of. We're going to be showing that to you right now. Patriots are being purged from Twitter right now. Sidney Powell, Lynn Woods, Code Monkey Z, Praying Medic, General Flynn, they're all gone off of Twitter. Facebook is also following suit with the others. Then there was this post on Twitter that just came out. Breaking, Apple is currently threatening to ban Parler, the free speech alternative to Twitter, unless the service enacts draconian censorship policies demanded by the left-wing big tech oligarchs, according to two sources familiar with Apple threats. That came out at 4:43 p.m. Pacific time today. What's next? Will GoDaddy start to ban websites? Probably. Let's be real here. They're censoring our voice. They have got to shut us up. And now that we are starting to say what we think, feel, and doing so loudly, they have to up or ramp up their attempts to silence us. So what's next? Well, I think you know where I'm headed with this. And the fact that they would be taking down any type of patriot websites, this type of thing is, I would imagine, is quite possible. Movement along these lines are happening right now with alarming speed. Will Apple take away our abilities to text or make calls? You know, someone said to me, well, why would they do that? They're going to be losing all this money and etc. Well, let's think critically, folks. Twitter could also be losing a lot of money by banning all the patriots that they have off of Twitter. You know, people there, they're doing advertisements and etc. Yet they got rid of a very large percentage and or shutting down or censoring a large percentage of their base where they could be making money. So would they not do it because they would lose a lot of money? There's something a lot more important. There's something where they can make a lot more money. And that is by enslaving the rest of us through tyranny and everything else. This is just basically an investment, is the way I look at it. Will Apple take away our abilities to text or make calls? You decide. Facebook and Twitter are shutting down accounts. Be aware that Apple and others may start killing our cell phones if so we can't communicate. GoDaddy will be shutting down conservative websites next. You just wait and see. Everyone should consider obtaining high quality walkie-talkies and tune into the same channel with those that you are wanting to communicate with. And I'm talking about the ones with extensive reach, not the little toys. Okay, that is just one thing that you can do right now that will be very helpful. And remember, our POTUS had implemented an emergency broadcast system where he can override everything else. Remember when he first was sworn into office? That's one of the first things he did was send a text out to test it. So I remember that. Contact those who you need to and make arrangements in advance for information and where to meet if necessary. Think about it right now. If all communication were to cease, if that were to happen, great big IF, how would you communicate, meet up with your children, and or anything that needs to be done? Now, I'm not saying the electric grid's going down. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying communication. Now, could this be the 10 days of darkness that we keep hearing about? Possibly. I wouldn't be surprised. We're getting pretty close to the 20th. So if it's going to happen, it's probably going to happen fairly quickly. In my opinion, we may very soon have all communications shut down. So prepare for it, folks. Prepare for it. Now, as I said in the beginning of this broadcast, we need to bring ourselves to a place of peace. Most of this is just absolutely surreal to us. For most of us, it's absolutely surreal. We cannot imagine any of this going on. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. This is crazy. I mean, especially those of us, our age, spending our entire lives in a state of freedom that we took for granted. And also so many things happening underneath our noses to our children in schools. Every single entity that we trust has been infiltrated. Everything, including churches. That's another thing just to keep an eye on. I'm not saying all churches. No, I'm not saying that at all. But do you really think if everything that we are aware of as being infiltrated down to the nth degree, that the churches would be the last thing or something they wouldn't touch? Would it really be sacrosanct? I don't think so. In fact, you need to pay very close attention to what the churches do tell you to do and what to say. Those who are shutting down and not allowing for people to congregate, especially here in California. But then there are those that are staying open and doing everything that they can so we can continue worship. President Trump put out that executive order for a reason about Saint Thomas Becket. That's who it is. St. Thomas Becket, who in the 11th century was one of the few people within the Catholic Church that would absolutely not allow anything to be infiltrated. Did you know that? Why would President Trump choose a Catholic saint, any Catholic saint, let alone this one? If you learn about the history of Becket, you will see that he was the one person that stood in the way for King Henry II, who was just about as bad as King Henry VIII, of not allowing him to utilize the church for his tyranny. And because he stood up for it, he was actually martyred during a mass. And I won't go into it any more than that, but President Trump put out an executive order for a feast day. I believe it was the 28th. I think it was December 28th, to be able to recognize that. And in my opinion, it would probably be a good reason to show this to quite a few of the pastors, priests, heads of the churches, whichever, about why is Trump asking this to be recognized. It's because there was a priest who stood up for the church and would not allow it to be infiltrated. It's something to consider. So you need to use a lot of your gut instinct, be in prayer, use discernment, because right now you don't know what to believe. And it's me either. And I, there have been a lot of things. It's like, I don't know anymore. It's almost impossible to tell, but you know who you can trust. So, people, it's going to be okay. I do not for a second believe that Trump is just going to throw in the towel. That's not going to happen. That's not even in his makeup. He's giving the power back to we the people. And there are times you need to give up control of trying to think of things that you can do. You can do what you can personally do in your own personal space, but you can't control all this other stuff that's going on out there. You can't do it. So let go. Let God know He has this, know He's working with Trump, and be in prayer. It's going to be all right, everybody. Doesn't mean it won't get bumpy, but it's going to be all right. Good evening, everybody.